Hey everybody, I'm Wes Brownlee.
And I'm Sean Moscow,
And I'm Tyler Brownlee.
and the candy shop.
It's now open.
I
That
love
was a
it.
great noise, Tyler.
Great
That was a
noise.
great noise.
You know, I'm given a job. I'm given a job. I'm going to do my best on the job. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's true. You know, a lot of times when people have a job, though, they feel like it's pretty soulless. It makes you feel like you've lost touch with yourself and what you're actually meant to do. So today we kind of wanted to just have a bit of a philosophic conversation, a little bit about souls and what who has them, what they mean, what they are. Like, I guess an example, right, is like I would love to ask Sean what he thinks is like the lowest form of an organism that has a soul, just so we can kind of start
Ooh,
from the
start
bottom
from the
and work our
bottom
way
and
up.
work our way up. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so I guess for context for me, I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school all the way up, all the way through high school even. Finally was free of those shackles in college. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about souls and how what makes a soul special is the fact that only humans have them. And for me, that never really sat right with me. Um, Mainly because like you grow up with a dog, you grow up with like you see dolphins cracking jokes, you see elephants
Them
petting
bitches got
humans.
souls.
Yeah, like those have
Mhm.
souls. And I actually like after I left the Catholic Church. I guess I didn't leave, but I'm still in the market for a good church. But you know,
You're just not a
I'm
practicing
just not a
Catholic.
practicing Catholic. But I definitely believe that you know horses, anything with feelings, like horses, humans, dogs, things that suffer, deer. You
But
know
like as an ant,
that I think
Y-
could be
Yes,
possible. I could see the argument for ants having souls or like bugs having souls because bugs have been known to show like some sort of
they
feeling.
love their queens.
They do
I
love
mean,
their
we fucking too.
queens.
Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
we all love our
Don't get
queens.
me wrong. But like, I don't know. I feel like
But like, think about it this way: like, of all the living creatures on planet Earth, and I'm talking from like humans to great white sharks to blades of grass because they're alive. Like, what are the odds
they
that?
don't have a soul. You
But
could you could probably convince me 100-year-old tree has a soul.
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But like, what are the odds that only humans have souls? Number one,
It's
very
not
low.
possible,
It's
right?
not possible.
Because like, well, here's the thing: like, what are we defining as a soul? Is a
Would a soul
soul?
not be the ability to communicate the way you feel in a moment in time?
But I don't even think you need to communicate it. I think a soul is like if you can feel something and you can have a thought. Like think about it like this, right? Like a jellyfish can
Doesn't
probably
have a
I
soul.
actually I don't think a jellyfish can feel. I don't think they have a central nervous system.
I
Mm-mm.
think it genuinely to me it comes down to perception of soul. Because no, if we didn't have the ability to think for ourselves, we would never be like, "Hey, that thing that makes you feel sad when something happens, do you like what is that?" It all comes down to perception. So like we have no ability to perceive an ant with feelings.
Okay. So what
You
you're what I'm
know,
so what I'm hearing is like a soul is the ability to perceive that something has feelings, or like a thing can be able to perceive that itself has a feeling.
I would think so, which is where I come back to the 100-year-old tree. I find it difficult to believe that there is an organism that can live for such a long time and not be perceived by somebody else to have a feeling at a certain point in time. I.e., you cut off an 100-year-old tree's branch, you're going to be like, damn, you've been growing that shit for 100 years, and I just ruined that because we then perceive, hey, maybe this guy is not a fan that I chopped his cock off. You know,
I think in your example there, you're saying we have a soul because we can feel bad for the tree. Does the tree feel bad for itself?
That's we only have the ability to perceive. A
Right.
soul is something that we as human beings were like, hey man, that feeling inside you that makes you get choked up, that is something that we own as a soul. Because, like, there are people out there where they see something horrific, but they have been through so much that they numb to it.
Right.
And that is a part of their soul. Whereas everything is a perception. And, like, I genuinely believe that actuality only exists within perception.
Interesting.
Got you. Okay.
Okay. So what I believe is a soul, because there's a lot of different theories on souls. First of all, I also believe in reincarnation. I do think that is
For sure.
that is a thing. I think
Absolutely.
there's too much evidence or coincidences to where it could not that are in favor of rather than not in favor. But there's a lot of different theories on souls and what they are. One of the probably more famous ones is that we all are the same being. Like we're all the same person, but we're just living different lives and we're gaining different experiences to hopefully achieve like nirvana.
Isn't
Now,
that called the egg theory?
yeah, it is called the egg theory, and that is something I don't believe in because what I believe is that what makes a soul special is its individuality, and I think what I believe is me. What makes me is my soul. And if you were to take my soul out and switch it with Tyler's body, and like Tyler's soul now goes into my body, what makes me will transfer over to Tyler's body, and I would just be me in Tyler's body, and he would be me in my body. So that is what I believe, and that is what I believe like where kind of those souls come from. And even if if I get reincarnated as a cat, I think like I would have the same personality or similar personalities to what I have now. Like that is kind of what I believe. Going kind of to that perception side of it that you mentioned, Tyler, like there are instances where it's like plants, because I think like a clear component of a soul is being able to feel and being able to show that you're feeling something. That to me is like what comes from a soul. And I think this is where it comes, back to the plant side of it. When you like cutting off that tree's limb, there are some plants that you can tell that they're in pain because they release a defense mechanism when you like pluck a leaf or, tear a limb off, and they release, a scent, or they release like some sap to try to deter you from that. So they know that they're in pain or they're hurting or something's going wrong per se. And so it's kind of like, to me, it's like that is a tinkling of evidence that they have pain receptors or they have a soul or they have something to feel. Because also going over that is like something like a starfish. Starfish, we don't know if I don't know if they feel pain, but if you tear
Because they grow back.
because they grow back, exactly. So is it just like a normal Tuesday for them? But
I wanted to work.
lost the leg.
Yo, Jimmy, what leg you lose today?
Yeah.
I lost my right limb.
Yeah. But there's also that whole argument of like, some people say like you have to have choice to have a soul, and like, there's evidence in dolphins and elephants and horses, choosing to do something rather than like what the Bible says of like they don't have free will. That's a whole nother can that we can get into. Because like, do any of us have free will?
I think.
But
I do not believe so.
I think we have free will. Just you have the free will to do something that's right or do something that's wrong. You just have to understand that if you do something that's wrong, other people will use their free will to make sure you no longer have free will.
Yeah, very, very true. But like getting up out of the bed, is that free will or is something making you doing that?
I mean, usually
it's not free will. There's no chance I'm waking up in the morning to go do what I do on a daily basis with free will. No chance.
But that's a choice. You've chosen that that's how you're going to use your free will. If I wanted to, I could wake up and decide one day that I am just not going to work again. Will there be consequences to that? Yes, but I have that choice every day.
But then again,
so thinking of souls, right?
Yeah,
that choice dangles in front of me.
No. What I want to do is just like a quick exercise to get like a baseline of what has a soul. I'm going to name some beings or things. and I want y'all to just answer yes or no if they have a soul or not, because I think that'll kind of give us like a great baseline of where we sit, right? Because like obviously Sean's been saying like I think mammals in general we can say they have souls because I think we can agree that mammals are similar enough to us they can feel,
Yeah.
right? So like mammals
There is
souls,
a
yes.
pain receptor within their body.
Yes, and like I look at my cats, right, and I don't look at my cat, and I don't see a cat. I see my little buddy.
Sam,
Little buddy, my
Sam.
friend, my best friend.
Like at that point, like when you form a relationship with another species soul, you don't see them as that other species. You just see them as like one of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like mammals, they have souls. What about like birds?
Yeah, absolutely.
Birds for
Sure.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. 100% agree. Think of like so. So what about like I guess well I kind of just like keep stepping down and see where we stop.
Wait, let
So
me answer the bird thing
okay,
because I 100% believe birds have souls. Have you not seen how intelligent crows are?
My
no,
God,
they're very
yeah.
intelligent.
They have the mind of a
Like
5-year-old, as do
I,
cockatoos.
Hmm.
these motherfuckers talk to you, bruh.
You could
Yeah,
have
they're so
They
smart.
conversations.
literally
They're so
they
smart.
live for 70 years and will walk up to you and say, "Hey, yo, bruh,
Dap you up.
you telling me that motherfucker don't have a soul?"
He's got a
All right,
soul. Absolutely.
case in point.
Cool. So birds, yes. How about like a reptile? I'm thinking like alligator, crocodile.
I would think so.
I would think yes.
Hmm.
They do something on a daily basis. They wait for food. I think the thing that makes it feel like less is because they like are so sedentary most of the time. They don't do much.
Hmm.
But I think that's because they're not required to do much, right? Like they'd rather just chill in the sun.
Yeah.
As somebody who owned two different types of lizards, I 1000% believe that they have souls due to the fact that I was sad when they had passed. In the same coin, I don't know that I could say I perceived them having feelings, if that makes sense.
I mean, they definitely do. They definitely have central nervous systems and they have nerves. So
I
like,
don't mean, motherfucker, I don't mean that they
He's
feel
he means
things.
emotions.
I mean that I don't
yeah, yeah,
know that
yeah.
I could say that my lizard would feel betrayed if I flicked it. You know what I'm saying?
They would
But
feel fear.
Likely. I
I,
never found out. I
They would
loved
run
my
away.
lizards.
I think
They
that
would run away from you.
they could they could feel fear. That they can feel fear and they can recognize you. They
Yeah,
can recognize, like I mean,
I
like
guess that's fair.
when you
I
say
guess that's fair.
like alligators and crocodiles, like I have a strong feeling that the crocodiles at the Australia Zoo know or knew
Robert's the goat.
what Steve Irwin looked like versus some
Yes.
other
Hmm.
zookeeper. And to this day, I know the ones
Hmm.
that know who Robert Irwin is versus a random zookeeper. So,
Oh, I love that man's
oh,
videos
me
so
too.
Oh, they're
much.
so
I
I
would
good.
kill to
dream
do what that
celebrity,
brother does.
Oh,
dream
Oh
Steve.
my
celebrity.
god,
Short form Steve Irwin is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
bro,
I
Yeah. So
he's my hall
so
pass.
I saw his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and I cried. I love that man so
so
much.
So
so we're
amazing.
saying that reptiles probably yes have souls.
Hmm.
I'm going with yes.
Yeah.
We'll go with yes. Given the fact that I've had lizards, I would say yeah.
Okay, cool. I guess the next step down would be like fish. What do we feel about fish? I
Yeah.
feel like it depends on the fish, low key, but I also feel
You
like
telling me
all
that when Nemo learned how to say anemone that he did not have a soul? I don't
no.
goddamn believe you for a fucking second.
I know Nemo had a soul when he went and touched that butt.
Oh, he knew what he was doing when
Um,
he touched that butt.
Me too, bro.
he knew what he was doing. He said, "I'm
Um,
touching the butt." But I think fish are kind of like in the same plane as like a reptile, right? Like I think
no,
they feel like very basic emotions like fear, but I think they still feel things.
Yeah. Well, fish also they can form symbiotic relationships with other aquatic
They
creatures.
can, yeah.
So they have a
I
relationship with
didn't think about that.
other organisms, and they can also I mean, take salmon for example. Like the parents literally damn near die just to have their children. I don't know if
Oh,
that's
they don't
considered
damn near die.
love.
I
They
don't
do
feel
die.
like that.
They do
They
die.
do
I feel like
die.
that's not
They do die.
wanted. You know what I'm saying? They're probably like
That's just
Padme, where they're like,
biology. Like that.
"Damn,
That
this is
But
unfortunate. I'm dying."
but
no,
if
but see,
I
like it's a big difference. So like that, I think that's where like that. It's a valid point to bring up, Sean, though, because there's a big difference between like it's not their choice to die. That's just biology and instinct. They're just acting on the only thing they know. They can
this
feel fear and like a feeling, say like if a bear attacks them on their way up to the spawning ground,
mhm.
but like it doesn't.
But I
You
think we
know,
also, and I mean, I might be wrong, but I think attributing a soul to good is impossible, given that
Yeah.
I think there are some souls that are vile. For example, at work today, somebody was telling a story about how um, their neighbor's cat had kitties, and one of them was a runt, and it got killed by the mom because
mm,
in nature, a runt is going to get more things killed than itself.
Hmm.
Um, which I think that's where, if anything, that screams soul to me. But is it a shitty soul?
Interesting.
Maybe a smidgen.
no, I mean again, like we've already discussed that mammals have souls, right? Like yes, you can have a soul, but it's a bad soul. But
It's
that's
a
not a
bad soul.
bad like that's not a bad soul, right? Like birds do the same thing. If you're the last chick to hatch from an egg, you're probably gonna get tossed out of the nest. That's just
Probably gonna
nature.
get probably gonna go shit on a human. Pieces of shit.
Well, how often does that really happen? That actually did happen once. I was
Probably
sit.
so
That
No,
happened
often.
no, no.
once
It
to
was.
me.
I remember it was an eighth grade. I'm sitting on the bench at a like it was a middle school soccer game, sitting next to the team manager, and out of nowhere, bird shit just falls right on her arm. It was so fucking funny.
That's
Just
Ew.
that
hilarious.
the
That's
whole.
disgusting.
I would have been there. Who was it?
No, maybe it was seventh grade. It was Shannon. It was before you because that was when like Aaliyah was manager.
I was about to say because eighth grade. I mean, hey, made the middle school soccer team as a sixth grader. I don't got no hair to flip, but I'm flipping it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, big flexer.
Big bala booty shot kala.
Okay, so we've established that fish. Have we answered fish?
I think fish
I mean,
could be an argument for or argument against because I mean like schools are literally a relationship. I think so.
Yeah.
Like everything
No,
from the
like I'm
tiniest
voting yes for
starters.
fish.
I think like there are more arguments for than against. Also, fish change sexes if need be. So like they're kind of nature's wonder.
hold the fuck up.
Certain
No,
fish.
Certain
hold the
fish,
fuck
Certain
up.
certain
fish.
fish, certain fish. Yeah.
I need you
Clownfish.
both to shut up right now. Are you telling me we got transgender fish in the ocean?
Yeah.
Yes. Not to be confused with transgenic mice, which are not
Mm-hmm.
transgender mice. They're
Mm-hmm.
mice with different genes than other mice.
Yeah,
So
well, didn't fucking Donald Trump? That's another story.
anyway,
Um,
we're not going to get into it. But people just need to learn
so
how to read.
no, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave this. You're telling me that fish change their gender because, like, I know sea horse, for
Clownfish.
example.
Clownfish change
You
their
know,
gender. Yes. The largest male in a school of clownfish will turn into a female after the other female passes away or leaves the group.
you know.
They had no. Tyler, do you know
I'm
how
sorry.
fish reproduce?
I
They,
have zero clue.
Oh,
Genuinely zero clue.
okay.
Please
So
enlighten me. I have no idea. I've always
okay,
thought
so
they just,
fish reproduce by spawning. So like there's no difference in their sex organ. It's the same thing, right? Like if birds don't have different sex organs, they have
they have a
cloacas. It's the
cloaca.
same thing. They just secrete different chemicals, right?
Juices.
So like a male bird will secrete a sperm, and a female bird will make an egg, but they come out of the same thing. So like a female bird pisses, shits, and lays eggs out of the same hole.
Hmm.
And a male bird pisses, shits, and
Releases, ejaculates.
releases sperm out of the same hole.
Hmm.
Fish are similar, where fish just so a female fish, Tyler, will put its eggs in the water unfertilized. Then the male fish pretty much just swim as close to the egg
Yeah.
as possible
And just.
and just let their sperm go. And it's just like a
just
spray and
free
pray.
willy.
Hmm.
There's no like there's no
Sex.
like contact. They just do it. They're like, okay,
Oh,
You'll
time to
also
bust.
down the bust.
they're more
Well,
like flowers then. What?
they'll
In a
males you'll
way,
see
yes.
chase females in really tight crevices So that way, when the females get full of eggs and they swim through these tight crevices, it squeezes the eggs out, and the males will scoop in and
and then they
fertilize.
bust
And
onto eggs.
mm-hmm.
Nah,
Very
that's
common.
crazy. So Tyler,
Biology episode.
Hey,
nah, like I didn't know the episode was going this direction, but like,
nah.
yes, that's
No,
like
this is
that.
genuinely fascinating. I had zero clue. And to be fair, as somebody who dropped out first year biology, why the fuck would I know? But like, I guess I had always just thought, like, for example, a giraffe. Where is their dick coming from? Nobody knows, but that
Nah,
shit just shows
Tyler,
up.
we know, bro, because we watched that shit happen at the zoo one time when
I'm
Nana was there.
Shot, when we were
Giraffes.
like 5 and 7, we went to
And
the zoo and we
Easton was
watched
like
2 giraffes. Oh my
3.
god.
Bro, it was
Not
so
okay.
funny. It was
Dude,
so funny because
Not
Easton was
okay.
like, "Nana, what are they doing?" And it was the classic, like they're wrestling.
They're wrestling. They're having an
They're
argument.
playing.
Yeah, they're wrestling right now.
I worked at the zoo. We had 2 tortoises going at it, like Galapagos tortoises going at it, and
Did
those
they do the?
motherfuckers,
Eh,
they are noisy. Like my god.
that's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what other way you
Man.
would want it. I would say I'm on the no for fish. I believe,
I'm
based
a
off
yes
what
for
you've just told
fish.
me, they are living plants.
No, I'm a yes for fish. Tyler, you have to think about it though. Like, it's so much more strategic to just do it that way if you're a fish, because like, but you're in the water, you don't have
You're
arms.
telling me no fish don't want no head?
Yeah, I'm telling you that.
They
I don't
crazy
think
for that.
I don't think many animals
Ain't
do.
nobody that don't want head is not a soul.
Tyler, then we're gonna have to really revisit like 90% of your answers so far. Then
All right, hear me out. In actuality, I think it boils down to what type of fish we're speaking of. I think there is a difference between the instinct that you are given upon birth to do what you have been birthed in which to do, compared to having the autonomy to make your own decisions and actually feel a certain way about others' decisions. I don't think a single fish is like, yo, dog, you're telling me you stepped on my J's? I don't think so. Like, I don't
what?
believe so.
Well,
Like,
fish.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't foresee a fish having a soul. It's just me.
No, hey, look, fair enough, fair enough. Look, and I'm not here to argue your opinion. I would just say I think fish do, but I think many things below fish is probably going to be a no for me. Like a bug.
Well,
To go back to Tyler's thing earlier for like an ant, right? Like an ant,
But
like,
butterflies are so
but
beautiful.
see, but see,
They
okay,
live their whole life wanting to become a butterfly, and then they do, and then they
then
just
they
die. And
die.
you want to tell me that's not tragic, and they don't feel a certain way about becoming beautiful and then losing everything within 5 days? I find that difficult to believe, my brother.
no, but look, okay. I'm gonna go back to Sean's argument, right? Like an ant has a purpose, and it's a relationship-driven purpose. I am worker ant. I get food for other ant to feed baby ant to feed queen, so queen make more baby ant.
Back to my
I think they
statement of
have a
instinct.
collective soul as
Oh,
a
you think a
ant
colony
colony.
is one soul?
Well,
A
because you got to
hive
think that
soul?
you don't call it a hive mind for a reason, right? Like
That's true.
when you watch like that one Rick and Morty episode when they're all like sitting there yapping about the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
the whole planet. What was her name? Unity.
Unity,
Uh, it's
badass.
they're all the same person at
Man.
that point. So I feel like ants and like bees are pretty similar, right? Like yes, they're all individuals, but they all have the exact same goal, and all they do is do what they can for their colony. Now, different beehives and different ant colonies are different souls, but I think the colony itself has its own soul.
Hmm.
And
However,
that's where to my statement,
I,
I find it difficult to differentiate instinctual purpose of existence compared to knowledge of oneself's existence and like realization and observation of existence.
well, okay. So I don't disagree with you, Wes, and I actually think that's a good point. I haven't heard that point before, but I wanna maybe give our listeners kind of a new way to think about it. Like
All right, let's hear it.
you hear the phrase natural born leader, right? that kind of denotes that there's natural born followers as well. And I think that
Hmm.
we've all experienced someone who's more willing to follow than more willing to lead. I actually, might think about the souls being, or one soul being like an entire colony, but going kind of off that natural born leader, natural born followers, you could kind of make that argument of like an ant colony is just one natural born leader with a bunch of natural born followers, kind of similar to a cult that we have in humans. I mean, think about it. Like, there's some cults that the leader says one thing and all the workers or all the other people just do it without even thinking about it.
You guys on to something?
You could make
Nah,
that you could make
you're
that
cooking.
argument. You could make that
No,
argument.
you're cooking. And I study. I have a degree. Like part of my degree is in leadership studies. So like I 100% agree that you can't have leadership without followership. And in fact, the most important thing about a leadership follower dynamic is the follower. Because if the follower ever decides not to follow, you no longer have a leader.
That's cool. I like that. That's a bar right there.
And I think
But how does
that's
that
that.
relate to a soul? I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. We're like these, and it's weird to say, but like these lower beings that we perceive because they're so tiny, how can you differentiate an instinctual, I know what I exist for and I will complete this one thing that I exist for? I don't exist to work. I exist to enjoy myself. I exist to provide love to those around. I exist for those reasons.
Mhm.
I am aware of this. I'm aware of my own feelings. These smaller beings, such as ants and fish, I don't feel as though somebody runs the block, pulls up, gat, their homie. They're not like, Jimmy, no. They just move on with their life. They're like, okay, there goes Jimmy. What's on to the next?
Yeah, I mean, fair. Look, and like to counter your other point, your whole purpose of existence, Tyler, is to create more humans biologically.
Which sucks.
No, look, I think it's funny. What's emerging here, right, is we have three very different viewpoints on this because we're all three very different people.
Three very different souls.
I have a very scientific and like logical viewpoint on this. Tyler has a very emotional and like almost like a metaphysical viewpoint on this. And Sean's is very spiritually driven. So I
Mhm.
think it's
Mhm.
it's interesting to have this conversation with the three of us because like I see where all three of us are coming from and I see where
Yeah.
the
100%.
disagreements are coming from
That's
as
why
well.
I love this topic. I think it's so interesting because everybody's got a different view, and
Because
we
if you
might
ask
never
me, right,
know.
like if you ask me, like a bug, like an ant, right, people could say, okay, humans are the most successful species on the planet.
Mhm.
Ants,
Well,
bruh. Ants,
ants
bruh.
ants
It's-
outnumber us by like the trillions, have
Yeah,
more
there's
biomass than humans do. The only reason why we perceive ourselves as more successful is because we've like done what humans have done. We've created the ability to have a podcast, right? Like ants
right.
could never.
And well,
Fiber
to be fair, ants
We have
Ants
could.
could
glass going
never.
through the
We
ground.
just don't know if ants have a podcast. We've never
I
listened
would
to
be
it.
really I would be really impressed if I pulled up on Spotify and I just saw the ant colony.
The ant colony.
Like maybe that's what we'll have to rename our podcast too if we ever get copyrighted. The ant
The ant
colony.
colony. Okay, let me shift gears a little bit here.
All right.
Bugs might be a better topic, but what do you think about like crustaceans, like the horseshoe crab, like shrimp? Like,
I think those are just ocean bugs.
think they're just so they also you don't think they have a soul?
I said yes. Like I think they have like collective soul, but like it's different, right? Like a lobster. Yeah, like I think anything that can move and feel things on its own
Mm-hmm.
has a soul. Where I draw the line is like a coral. I don't think a coral has a soul. I don't know if a jellyfish has a soul because they don't have that central nervous system, right? They just kind of exist.
Okay.
I think like when it comes to plants, I don't think any plants really have a soul.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, like there are some plants that can feel like a Venus flytrap, but they don't feel because of like an emotion or a sense. They have a special barb that if a fly touches it, they just close.
Yeah.
They do one thing, right? Like
Yeah. So
It's
Not a special barb.
I love the plants because you know kind of was on that same platform, but then somebody told me actually learned this in college, and it kind of reshaped the way I think. This is why I love college. I think it reshapes the way you think. It makes you just think
Better
critically.
bed.
Um, that smell of grass, freshly mowed grass that we all love during the summertime, that is grass letting other grass blades know that there's danger nearby. That's a secretion that they release that is
That's
like, hey,
fascinating.
I'm getting eaten, something's happening to me, I'm getting destroyed. You need to, I'm just letting you know that could happen to you. Like that's what that smell is. And that I thought was very interesting because like, is that nature or is that a choice that the grass is doing? Or is that a reflex? Either way, if it's a reflex, I feel like that shows that there's some sort of being in there. Because if it was just nothing, then it wouldn't react and it wouldn't respond. It would just get chopped up and nothing would happen. But the fact that there's a reaction to something bad happening to it, because it's literally getting chopped down. That to me was interesting, and that to me was like that. There's something there that I don't understand, and I don't know if I'm meant to understand. But that's a very interesting. Why would it let other grasses know that it's getting hurt?
That's where, like, and I hate that this will be like the fourth time I've said it, but like, I can't get around perception
Mm-hmm.
because genuinely, me not knowing this would have been like, you're telling me the grass has feelings? You're lying to me. You talking out of your ass right now. But with this knowledge of, oh, well, the reason why you smell what you smell when you cut grass isn't just because you have freshly cut grass. It is because it is the grass's way of saying, hey, yo, Jimmy down yonder path might not want to be ripped to shreds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's where, for example, everybody has or had some sort of comforting stuffed animal, blanket, something that to them, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but like had an existence beyond just being a blanket. Like, for example, my beloved girlfriend, love the woman, she has a stuffed animal that she loves dearly and will not sleep without said stuffed animal. You want me to try and tell her that that stuffed animal does not have a soul? I cannot, because she perceives it too.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas somebody like me cannot perceive that. This is a stuffed animal. Like, you know what I mean? And that's where it's so fascinating that like even the thought of a soul existing in itself is just I don't know. I don't know. And to back to the crustacean thing, I'm unable to perceive that a damn horseshoe crab is like, yo, Jimmy, they're coming for us. Let's get out of here. I don't know. I don't know.
my thing is right. What is the other blade of grass going to do once it hears that signal that danger is coming? Because the grass cannot do shit about it.
Well,
The grass ain't moving, bro.
well, that's kind of the thing is like we could go back to it's not moving, no, but it could release seeds to help spread its genes out there and try to survive on in another being. It could be hopeless for it, but like it could still try to release its sperm or
No, but
its
see, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. The grass doesn't die when you cut it. The grass
no.
is not
Actually goes
affected
more
much,
when you cut it.
besides the fact that it's just gonna grow it back. Like
Yeah.
it's a big difference between like yes, if you were to put a bunch of people in a line and then you had a lawnmower,
It just
like the
mow.
people are not growing back. The
Right.
grass will grow back and we'll be fine.
Yeah, but it also I don't know if it and this is where it like I like see the argument but don't see the argument in as if like grass has souls is like the grass might not know the difference between it being pulled up and torn by a bug or eaten by a bug versus just getting cut. To the grass, it's just all of a
Yeah.
sudden it was 3 inches and now it's 1 inch. Like what the hell just
Me too,
happened?
grass.
Yeah, we spent a
Me
week
too,
growing this
Hey
and now it's
grass.
just
yo.
gone. Hey,
Hmm.
um, but I think that signaling to other grasses is communication, which I think could be a
But is communication in itself the like a sign of a soul?
I
And
think
that's where once again, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to perceive
mhm,
genuinely. Like I'm looking at my trash can over there, made of plastic.
made of plastic.
Nah, anything plastic or like engineered, it does definitely not have, like a rock does not have a soul.
So it's
A trash can,
The St. Louis Gateway Arch doesn't have a soul.
no, does not
No.
have a soul. In the same breath as like El Cap doesn't have a soul, right? It's a rock.
Yeah,
It's a
Yeah.
rock.
I don't think it has a soul.
Like like again, I can perceive that it's something special to me, but that does not make it have a soul.
Right.
I think a soul, if I'm giving like a solid definition of what I think a soul is, it is a soul is possessed by any organism that can feel, think, move, or do any sort of biological process on its own without interference from outside organisms.
So like a
Like
sentient being.
I guess by that, yeah, but by that definition, like a tree would too, because like a tree
And that's,
makes leaves.
but I
Like
think
maybe
it's
plants do have
impossible to
souls.
say
I
that
don't
a
know.
tree can't have one, because like genuinely,
Maybe it's just a
if
different
if
type of soul. Because like if we
if
have
you
souls, right? Like maybe you could
want
just
to
have different
tell
types.
if you want to tell an 80-year-old woman who has spent 50 years of her life growing an apple tree that that tree does not have a soul, I find it hard to believe that the woman will back down on that because she has taught it to grow. She has seen which different seasons this tree. Maybe in 1998, the tree was not having it, and all year long it didn't grow a single apple. But come 2002, it was the most bountiful tree she's ever seen.
Mm.
And then come 2020, this tree is withered.
Mhm.
You mean to tell me that you want me to explain to this 80-year-old woman, hey, this tree has never once felt a thing?
Nah, that's so
Back
valid.
to
Mhm.
when I walk to Carter Mountain. Jesus, what am I? Fucking,
The
what's
Flash.
sort of names? Bonnie and Clyde? No, no.
Lewis and
Who are the
Clark.
Lewis
Explorers,
and
boys?
Clark.
Lewis and Clark.
Thank you, Lewis and Clark. Um, like I walk to Carter Mountain. I just say, I'm gonna take this apple. I want this apple. I'm not thinking a damn second about the tree. But to somebody who has grown the tree themselves and watched the tree grow from a sapling to a massive tree, to them, that tree has a soul and they can tell a story about that tree.
You could technically do
It's
Yeah.
that with.
all perception. I don't know.
No,
And
look,
that's where I
I think
find it difficult.
the definition I gave just like also said that trees and plants are have souls. They're organisms that do biological processes on their own without intervention from the outside.
Mhm.
So like I think the way I look at it is like maybe it's just different types of souls. Like just like there are different types of
Mm.
physical beings, right? Like I am different from my cats. Sean is different from his wife.
Mhm.
Trees' souls can be different from mammal souls. Reptile souls can be different from fish souls. Like
That's a good
the
point.
only thing you'll never get me on is anything not living. Like this cardboard box does not have a soul.
I would
This
agree.
is just a cardboard box.
Until I paint a pretty picture on it. And then you might think, oh my God, that cardboard box has a story to tell.
I think maybe it has soul, but does not have a soul at that point. There's also a difference there.
Oh,
Mm, has soul, but not the
that's
soul. A
fascinating.
soul. Like
Because
like
That's
Forky.
I
fascinating.
would say yeah, like I would say Cameron's stuffed animal or Eason's Lovey have soul, but they do
Oh,
not
sure.
have a soul.
Mm,
I like that. I really like that. I think that that is a phenomenal point that I hadn't even considered. Because, like, for example, music.
Hmm.
Music has
There is
emotions.
no
There,
part of a song that is whatsoever living, but that shit'll make you cry.
mm-hmm. That'll make you feel feelings. I always like to
So
say music is a gift from the gods. Like we don't deserve music. It's too
we don't
powerful.
deserve a damn thing, bro. We are pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Humans, bro. Fucking hell.
And I think that that's kind of what is amazing about a soul is like it could be. There's so many things that go into it. Like you instill love into something, it all of a sudden has soul, or it has a soul. You instill a personality into it, that's a soul. Like you instill
Mhm.
feelings into it, like that's a soul. I mean, I think there are some hateful souls out there, and I think that there's some good souls. I think there is that kind of balance. I think in terms of that spiritual side, like there's that balance of good versus evil, but also in nature. I think nature does a great job of balancing itself out, and I think that that's kind of part of. I think a soul is a part of that. You know, I think for me, this kind of stemmed from like what happens after we die, and what scares me the most is the lack of feeling anything. I think that to me is what
Mhm.
terrifies me. Just the fact that there's just nothing. I think is what scares me the most because I think what allows me to feel and have empathy and experience joy, experience sadness. I think that is what makes human. I think that's what makes life in general super valuable. And I think the absence
Mhm.
of that is awful. I think the fact that there's like nothing. Um, and
There is not a high
yeah,
without a low.
there's not a high without a
hmm
low, and I think that that's the beauty of life. And it definitely sucks on the lows, but the highs make hopefully worth it. Um,
Mhm.
and you know, something that kind of sparked that thought was like the Bible says that you know hell is actually frozen, solid, and there's just nothing there because it's the absence of God's love and warmth. And heaven is actually pretty warm, which I thought was pretty interesting because you hear like the fires
Mhm.
of hell, but they're actually cold fires. They're not warm fires, which I think is
I don't
interesting.
know. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think the thing to me about the afterlife per se is I'm a massive, 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 massive believer in that you cannot change in which that you are unable to affect. So I have never, and I mean to say never might be an overstatement, but there's a guy that I work with who is really really into like what he believes the afterlife is. Like he is extremely open about what he believes will occur when he passes, and I almost feel as though it's not. I believe in reincarnation, by the way. I believe
Mm-hmm.
100% when you pass, your soul travels into something else, and that's the next time. Um, but I think to me, it's difficult to think about because it's imperceivable. Nobody has been able to die and tell about it. You know what I mean? I guess, per
hmm
se.
Mm-hmm. It's all about the full experience.
No, I agree. I think I'm very curious about what's going to happen when I die. Right? Like
Low key.
It's another
I'm not
adventure.
saying that like it's anything I'm excited for. I like
No,
what's down here.
no, I don't want to find out.
I like what's down here on Earth, and I want to keep it that way. But I also think it's like super interesting to think like what does happen. Is it just black? Like that would suck if it is. But like you can't. Black is a color, and if you can't see a color, you can't just be black. Like there's got to be something, and I'm very curious as to what that something is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that like is part of the human condition is that like we can think about that and is cool. And I think
Do you
again, like
think black is the color or the absence of color?
black is the absence of color, but the absence of color inherently means there is no white is the absence of color. Black is the combination of all
All
color.
colors.
I guess
But
that is why my computer screen is black, and then I turn it on and I see all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
yep. So I think it's just super interesting to think like I think it's cool that we get to think about these things as people, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's super cool that like it's very clear that we all have very different reasons for what we believe about souls and like these things, right? Like again, Tyler's is very emotionally driven. Mine is very like scientifically and logically driven. Sean's is very spiritually driven.
Mhm.
And I think it's cool to like learn from you guys how you guys see the world. And I think everybody, you ask anybody this question, you're gonna have the same conversation. It's all gonna be about how they see the world in general too.
It's a great first date
I
question.
love hearing other people's fucking opinion. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. And I like, for example, when I tell somebody my favorite food and they completely disagree with me, that's a fun conversation. As much as I might want to sock you, that's a fun conversation.
The only time I don't want to hear somebody's opinion is if their opinion is the only one they'll accept as correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shut the fuck up. Sit down. Get the fuck out of here.
Could not agree more.
Mm-mm.
Could not
Like,
agree more. Back to the religion thing. I am not a personally religious man, but I will never, ever tell you that I'm not open to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, a lot of religious people
unless
are
unless it's like
closed-minded.
the person that stands on the
Mhm.
corner and they're just like
You're
actively
going to
pressing me
hell.
every time I pull up to the stop sign to come to their church. Like at that point, please let me just drive.
Please let me go.
You have been
Please let me go.
mind. What
Like
is it?
you've been religiously annoying,
Yeah.
and I
Biblically
now
annoying.
believe. Yeah, I now believe you're an asshole.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh, for certain. For certain. You are willing to be a dickhead just to prove a point? Well, no, that's a terrible example. I will most definitely be a dickhead to prove a point.
yeah, I was gonna
You're
say.
willing to be a dickhead to a stranger to push something onto them.
Yeah. Force their opinions.
Yeah, if you
You're
know
trying to
somebody and
be
you have a
forceful.
relationship outside of it, it's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. West, I hate FIFA. That does not mean that when you ask me to play FIFA, I don't think about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
think
valid.
when it comes to religious people, I think a lot of them ultimately hate themselves and view and believe they're inherently
Interesting.
bad and use
That's
religion.
a
to,
conversation.
That's another. Yeah, that's a conversation for another time. But like that's kind of what I think. Being around them,
That's
majority of my life, I think a lot of them are so deeply unhappy with themselves that they look to religion for some sort of outlet. Which like that is not a bad thing, but when you don't try to work on
Enforce.
yourself, or when you don't try to work on yourself and you enforce it, that's where it's a problem.
yeah.
But
Like I think it's 100% cool to like have a religious belief, but don't use your religious belief to justify something shitty you've done.
yeah, because then you're still just a shitty person. You're gonna
Like
end
at
up in
that
hell
point,
with
just
the rest of
accept it.
us.
Like accept that you've done something shitty. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, and lastly, because I know we're getting close to time here, boys. I find it really difficult to because one of the big things that I've heard, and I don't study the Bible, I'm not religious, so I could just be completely incorrect. But one of the things that I've heard very often is that no matter what, you will be forgiven. And I think that teaching in itself is inherently incorrect. You can do things that will and should not be forgiven. And to believe that there is somebody who will forgive you gives you the false hope that you can do this with no consequences. And I
it.
think that in itself breeds a lot of issues.
I would
Yeah, I think the world in general can agree nobody's going to forgive Adolf Hitler.
no.
If you do believe that, we
We might need to.
We
You might
got
need to catch the
fists for
hands.
you.
We got six fists
We
right
got the
here.
1-2s for you. Yeah.
Well, so this is what's interesting because like what I was raised and taught on was Catholics believe you have to be remorseful. You can't just be forgiven, and that is where I think a lot of Christians get it wrong. Is like
Mhm.
you can't just please forgive me, and then you're forgiven. You actually have to want to be forgiven, and you feel remorse for your actions.
What is the thing that I heard? It is feeling remorse, acknowledging the issue, and actively changing character to resolve the issue. Those are the three things that you must do to genuinely feel bad about something.
Or like get over feeling bad about something, I think is what you mean.
I think you are probably correct, and you've always been able to read my mind.
I just know what you're talking about even when you don't say it right.
I don't say anything right. I'm not certain how anybody that I talk to on the phones is not like, this guy's a fucking weirdo.
Well, no, Tyler. Like people ask me, like, how are you so patient? How do you like? How are you so understanding? And I just say, I lived with Tyler for
I
so
live with
many
Tyler.
years. Like, you have not done it. You don't understand the things I've seen, done, heard. Like, I lived with Tyler.
Hey, Tyler's just trying his best. But I think that's a great way to end it, boys. Um, had a phenomenal conversation today. That was amazing.
It's a great
Very,
combo.
very enjoyable. Um, Great to hear what y'all's thoughts are on Souls, though.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like we've talked a lot, and like, especially my brother,
Hmm.
fascinating to hear your thoughts on Souls.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that was super interesting, right? Like, I would have never. Like, I always knew Tyler was a very emotionally driven person. I didn't realize Sean was so like spiritually driven.
Mhm.
Love it.
I
Yeah.
think that's super cool. I think that.
Stop making it. Yeah, let's kiss, guys.
Mwah.
Mwah.
I think that was no. I think that's just really eye opening conversation. Like I'm going to be using this conversation to ask other people now, and I hope anybody that's listening does the same thing because I think you can learn a lot about somebody just by asking them what they think about souls, and
Mhm.
I think that's really cool. So on behalf of Sean, Tyler, and myself, I want to thank everybody today for tuning into the Candy Shop. Hopefully, you guys are leaving happy. You guys probably didn't come here thinking today was going to be the conversation that it was, but I hope you guys are glad that you got to listen to it. Everybody, I hope you keep that sweet tooth, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Keep that sweet tooth. Mwah.
Bye, friends.